Three items on our agenda tonight, and the first one could be the Federal Link extension. And Derek, right? Mark.
Yeah, I'm doing.
Forgive me.
I'll be doing it
Okay.
this time.
All right. So Mark's gonna kick this off for us. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, ready to go?
Yep. Let's do it.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Mark Madfai. I'm a design engineering supervisor at the city and also one of the liaisons for the Federal Link extension. Derek Hawks is my counterpart. He's here in the audience, and we share that role. Derek is in charge of the KDM area and everything north of 259th, and my area is everything south of 259th, including the Star Lake Station. But I'll be doing the update tonight for both of the station areas. The last update we did was back in, I just want to go back, was back in August. So this will talk about all the progress that's been made since August of last year. I'm sure you've seen this slide many times. Just shows the overall alignment of the Federal Link extension. Starts up at Angle Lake, where it ends now, continues south to Federal Way Transit Center, about 7.8 miles long, 12 minutes on the train. Revenue service opening, this says 2024, that's delayed now. I could talk about that a little bit more as we get into the presentation, but hopefully it's in 2025, but we don't know.
You have been excited for a while. So this is 2024. Nothing changed, but okay. Wait. All right.
Yeah. Well, I can get into some of the reasons why, but we don't have a date yet of opening. So.
Okay.
And then projected ridership of 36,500 people in 2035 per day. Permit revisions. So this is a design build project. So that means a lot of the design and construction is done through permit revisions. And within the permit revisions, there's many little design changes. And Derek and I look at those daily. And they get packaged into one larger permit revision. So there's been 895 for the entire project, about 253 approved for City of Kent so far, and those just are continuing. There's 146 in design in Sun Transit's area, but those will just be continuing until the project is completed. So I'll start with the Kent Des Moines station and garage area, the update on that. Utility work is done. Concrete roadway paving is progressing. City streetlight foundations are being installed. The Structure B guideway, which I'll show where that is. The deck is complete, and the plinths and track are being installed. So the plinths are the little concrete blocks that go on the guideway that the track is installed onto, which I have pictures of. Garage railing, interior and exterior finishes are being completed. Framing for the exterior architectural cladding is on. And the canopy is nearly complete. It's got the awning on it, and the elevator shafts are being finalized. This is just a conceptual drawing that kind of shows the overall KDM station area. North is to the left. KDM Road is over here on the left. These are three new connecting streets between 30th Avenue and Pacific Highway south. There's 30th Avenue, and there is Pacific Highway. And the station area is right along here, along 30th Avenue, and then here's the garage. This is more of a representation of the Federal Link extension through the City of Kent. So this is Kent Des Moines on the north end. County Dam Station is here, continues down to 272nd. Star Lake Station is right there. And this is Structure B. So Structure B is the elevated structure that goes from Kent Des Moines Road south to behind Lowe's and then up to the Midway landfill. So this is a good before and after shot of the guideway looking north towards Des Moines. And as you can see on the left was back in August. On the right is January. And so they've got the plinths. These are the plinths, the concrete little blocks showing up here. But on the right side, the concrete blocks, you can see the rails attached to. Those are installed. They've got those most of the way along Structure B. Track is installed, I think, through the station area. And they're getting about 300 to 400 of those feet measured along the guideway, 300 to 400 feet installed per week of the plinths. So they're making good progress there. And then the rail they weld about 80-foot lengths of track together at about 300 feet long sections, and then they roll it into place with some special rollers. I've not seen it, but it's a pretty big operation. There's looking south to the station area. You can see the difference between August and January. They've got the canopy up, all the framing up for the canopy on the approach there. There's looking west at the station area from August to January. As you can see, we've got the building enclosure for the stairs going up, canopy up there, up on top is all framed in and getting finalized. And there's a rendering of what the future station will look like, hopefully. If I can go back and just click back and forth a little bit, just to give you an idea on how it's coming together. So getting closer. And then here's a drone picture from back in July, looking south at the station and garage. And then here's one that we just got. Our wonderful drone pilots at our multimedia at the city got those pictures on a great day in January. Showed a great view of the mountain and everything. Shows the garage getting completed. You can see the cladding around the garage, and the guideway and rail is just further on. Another one back from July. And then this is another one from January. So you can see the progress on the station and garage. Pretty impressive, last 4 or 5 months. Another one back from July. And then there's January. They've got the awning up on top of the canopy. They've got the cladding on the exterior of the garage for the framing for the cladding, that's architectural cladding that's going on. And there is a good shot we got from the guideway looking at the garage. As you can see, the elevator glass line around the elevator shafts. Then here's some of the road work. This is 30th Avenue. We're looking north towards KDM Road. They've got the concrete road in place and curb. They're getting ready to grade for sidewalks. Another shot looking north. Here's another before and after looking west, northwest at the, you see the framing up on top and then the buildings for the stairways up to the station area. Another before and after of the garage. And this is an at-grade shot showing the garage. It's a pretty good comparison between last August and now. So making lots of progress and really starting to look like a finished product. Now I'll talk a little bit about Structure C, and just to orient you on where that is again, this is right here, kind of midway between the two station areas, just south of 259th Street. That's the area it's within a wetland area, and so it's, soft, compressible soils, not good for an ag grade structure at all, because it's just going to sink. So they were planning to do elevated structure in here. They were working on it, working on access to get to the shafts and columns. They had several blowouts and issues with putting in the foundation pilings and whatnot. They finally had a very large kind of a rotational blowout, a big one, up against the freeway embankment, and it caused them to have to shut off, close a lane on the freeway. So they finally gave up on that, and they went back to the drawing board and looked at other alternatives on how to get span through this area. And they settled on a long span option, which is a series of like 500-foot long spans to try to span through the area as much as possible. So that's what they are going with, and they're up to 90% now on that, so they're finalizing that design. And they're also doing work to be able to get access to the shafts and column areas that they need for that, which will be much less than what they needed before. So that is really the Achilles heel in the whole Federal Link Extension project that's causing the delay. And You know, they're working on it as quickly as they can, but we don't have a new timeline yet. So once we get something, we'll certainly share it with everyone. This is a shot looking north on Structure C, just recently. And then one looking south from 259th Street. And you can see they've already got a wall constructed here for one of the shaft locations that they need to get to. So update then on Star Lake Station. Concrete road paving and walls are getting installed along 272nd. Star Lake Garage, the 5th and final floor, concrete is being poured. The station walls are complete. Backfilling is complete between the walls, and they're starting to form and pour the platform areas. The Structure C bridge across the street is complete and ready for track installation. There's a concept again of the Star Lake area. I-5 north is to the left. I-5 is right up here. This is the southbound exit onto 272nd from I-5. 272nd is here. 26th Avenue curves around the west side of the station area. And then the station is located here, and here's the parking garage. And then there's a recent drone picture of just a few weeks ago. So you can see how far along the garage has gone. There's the station here in the background. And then you can see the paving done along 272nd here. Here's the drone picture we had from last update. As you can see, they're just going up to, I think, to the 3rd floor, ramping up to the 3rd floor of the garage. And they had just constructed the walls in the station area, and they're just starting to backfill in between. And here's a recent one here. So you can see the garage is much further along. They're just pouring the final floor, the 5th floor. The station area is all filled in, and they're forming and pouring the platform for that. There's just another one looking to the north. Here's a good one before and after on 26th Avenue that really shows the progress on how far they've gone up with the garage. And then there's one from the east side of the garage looking southwest. This is inside the station. So you can see they've formed up the platform. This station is different than the KDM station, where we have the platforms are on the outside and the trains are inside. KDM was the opposite. On the guideway, they had the platform on the inside and the tracks outside. But I think this is what we're looking at now has already been poured with concrete. And on the right side, they're working on the stairs and finishing up the walls for the station. Then there's the outside, recent pictures of the outside of the station area. And then there's a rendering of what it's hopefully going to look like soon. That's the ancillary building. That's just to the north of the station area. I think that provides backup power and whatnot to the trains. And that this is all new since the last update. So. And then along 272nd, this is looking west. The left is back in August, and the right is now. They've got they just had the foundation done then. Now you can see they've got the wall in, and they've got concrete paving done. And then this is looking east. You got a lot of the concrete paving curving in and grading for sidewalks. So they'll get this side of the road done and get it all paved up, and then flip over to the other side of the road, flip traffic over back onto this side. So they've still got quite a bit of work to do. It's going to be kind of messy traffic-wise for a while, and with periodic road closures, but making lots of progress.
Mm-hmm. Pretty cool.
So moving forward on segment 1 on KDM, continuing with the steel erection and exterior finishes on the station, escalator installation, interior finishes, start of station commissioning, which is all the testing and adjusting and all that stuff to get it final per specifications. communications device installation and testing, which is what communicates the track and the train together. At the garage, elevator installation, continuation of the finishes, commissioning of the garage, completion of the trash and transformer enclosure, and then other things, completion of the 30th Avenue concrete roadway, landscaping, Highline College Park, parking lot utilities and paving, completion of track on structure B, setting up the TPSS and signal house, and then start of segment-wide systems work. And then moving forward on segment 2 on the station and continuing with the platform construction, interior and exterior finishes, elevator installation, start of the station commissioning, and then the garage, they need to pour the final level, exterior and interior finishes on that, start of the commissioning for that. And then other things is just all the road work on 272nd, finishing up the track, finishing up the gap between the station and the structure Z, the bridge over 272nd, and then the ancillary building, and then all the system-wide finishing of the whole area. These are the mitigation projects. I talked about these last time. These are traffic mitigation to mitigate for all the traffic impacts at the station, the additional traffic at the stations. There's 4 identified. There were 5. 1 dropped off, but we have Pack Highway and KDM Road, Military and Reeth Road, 272nd and Star Lake Road, and Pack Highway and 272nd. And those are at 90%. We're just doing the final review, 90% review on those. They've already started right-of-way acquisitions, and so those need to be complete prior to revenue generating completion of the overall project. So that pretty much sums up the update. Like I said, we don't know when the new schedule will be, but hopefully they'll be providing it soon, and we'll be sharing that with everybody once we get it.
Thank you, Mark. Great presentation, boy. This thing's really coming along. You know, really seems like all of a sudden it's almost here, right? And I definitely like seeing KDM, right? So that's what the name is on. That's pretty awesome there. So, council member, any question, thoughts, concern for Mark? Good job. And I won't call you Derek again because you don't look alike. So I apologize for that. Okay, that's twice I did it. I won't do it again. Okay. So, okay.
All right.
Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. Great presentation.
There's also a drone flyover that we'll send you that Sound Transit's done for the whole thing. It's really cool to watch, so we'll send that out to everybody.
Please do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Coming up next is David, Brant Summary. Hello, sir.
Evening. How can I follow up with all those excellent pictures from the drones and whatnot? Well, here I've got a picture of Meet Me on Meeker and my wife walking with our dog. How about that? So, good evening, council members, Councilman President, and Madam Mayor. David Paine, I'm the transportation planner for the City of Kent. I'm here to talk this evening about transportation grants, both 2022 and 2023, as well as kick off our annual update for the 2024 to 2029 Transportation Improvement Program. So to that end, we're going to break the presentation up into 2 halves. The first part, we're going to be reviewing how we did on the 2022 transportation grants. And then the second half, we'll dive a little bit more into the kickoff for the Transportation Improvement Program, speaking to the schedule of the update, review how we are doing from a systems perspective with performance measures, as well as speak to the potential 2023 grant nominations. Looking forward to your input and feedback on those. In the interest of time, we'll keep things at a higher level, but as always, I'm happy to return with additional detail of anything, or if you'd like to go into anything in more detail, as well as those council members who are on our Public Works Committee. Some of this will seem hopefully a little familiar, and then you'll be seeing us again next month for some grants. So the first half, 2022 grants, what we did, how we did it, and what is next. So 4 major fund sources in 2022, included the legislative appropriations on the left, as well as our more traditional competitive grants processes represented here by the Puget Sound Regional Council, Washington State Department of Transportation, and the Transportation Improvement Board. The ledge here is really a bit of a, I don't want to say one-off, but it really represents a once-in-a-generation opportunity for funding through the Transportation Allocation Program. But it also, well, I don't want to get into too much details, but it does track closely with our grants programs because it still represents those projects that we've put into the Transportation Improvement Program and that have been prioritized through the work that this council, my predecessor, and all of the public did through the Transportation Master Plan and all of the work that's been really ginned up over the last 7 to 8 years. So in general, we do spend a good deal of effort to understand, anticipate, and be competitive for the grants process, which is reflected in our everyday efforts and our policy documents, including the Transportation Improvement Program. So in a word, how did we do in 2022? We did great. The gray map on the left, the black and white, represents what is in our TIP projects, and we spend a good amount of our time trying to light up those projects with funding, if you will. And so the summary of all of the projects on the right, it barely fits on one slide, is represented in sort of neon colors on the left as we light up those projects with funding. The competitive projects, grants awards on this list represent just shy of $10 million of competitive grant awards. That represents a total of a little over $13 million of projects that we will be delivering as a result of these grants and leveraging $3.3 million of local funds. Then the legislature, which I'll talk about on the next slide, adds on top of that. These projects represent a mix of multimodal corridors, completion of corridors, safety projects, and preservation projects. Just highlighting two from this project list that are perhaps a bit of a priority for the council that we've heard about in the past. The Quiet Zone at the top of the list, which you'll receive an update from Rob shortly on, as well as Meet Me on Meeker project is listed twice up there. Both a legislative appropriation for the segment of Kent Elementary to enter urban and Thompson to enter urban, both the legislature and the competitive grants for PSRC, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on those. So I want to pause here and really acknowledge and give credit to both the leadership of this council, as well as my predecessor and the strengths of the community to see all of this on one slide. It's hard to overstate the level of effort, preparation, commitment, dialogue, conversations that went into making this a success for 2022. So I definitely want to pause and acknowledge that. The community conversations that this organization went through, the folks at this dais went through, and the folks that participated in the TMP around transportation, including some hard conversations, really shine through in this list, as well as the participation and the leadership in the regional transportation, as represented by the leadership on this dais, including the goals-based transportation plan, prioritizing those projects. Some of those were hard choices, trade-offs, but since they were goals-based and those goals basis tracks strongly with the scoring processes and what's incentivized from a funding perspective, you're really seeing those in these results. I also need to share some credit with departmental collaborations, both economic and community development at parks departments, the police, including matching the applications to the criteria. That is all, in any given year, this would be just really a benchmark year for the city of Kent, but then along comes the Washington legislature with 4 projects, and we could spend a good bit of time reviewing each of these, but just to highlight 2 of them in particular, Meet Me on Meeker the stretch that they've nominated for funding is from Kent Elementary to the interurban trail. Represents about a half a mile of that project, and it's going to be really critical to funding almost the majority of the remainder of what is to be built on Meeker, and bring the Meeker, which we've already seen come to fruition, partly with that first image, that first slide, in the next couple of years. There's a little asterisk next to that, though, because the Washington legislature is meeting again now, and they haven't decided on the total timing of all of the funding. So the stretch of Meet Me on Meeker, Kent Elementary to interurban is on their docket to discuss as they're meeting now. And we are hopeful and will encourage them to expedite and accelerate hopefully nominate our stretch sooner rather than later, because it is a 16-year transportation funding package. So we do want to see that happen sooner rather than later.
Well, David, Mayor Raff have a comment. Mayor Raff, please.
All right, thanks. I just want to add to that. So we've been meeting with our legislators, and the projects across the state that were in that transportation package were all ranked using an equity matrix. Sorry, my words are not coming out very clearly. And the good news is, and I think no surprise to anyone, Kent's projects have ranked very high using that particular tool. And so our conversation with our legislative delegation is, we're ready. We need this money, and we have scored really, really well. So that is absolutely our team figuring that out, and where the projects make sense and how it meets those goals that David talked about. So I'm really grateful for that. And fingers crossed, and if you talk to any of your legislative delegation, remind them that we scored really well using their own criteria.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All four of the projects, though, do truly, I mean, as you just mentioned, represent huge priorities for the city of Kent, and a significant amount of work. All told, not to put too fine a point on it before the eggs have all hatched, it represents approximately $35.5 million worth of transportation projects, and we are ready to deliver them. Aside from the Washington legislature, on any given year, this would have been a benchmark, and it still is a benchmark year for performance and awards for the Puget Sound Regional Council projects. So we'll be bringing these to Public Works Committee next month, where we'll go into a little bit more detail on them. But again, Meet Me on Meeker is represented here for approximately $4.7 million award. That's leveraging $1 million of local match that this council appropriated. And again, the hard work that's been done to get that project ready for development and take it through the public involvement process, the permitting processes, and we'll be ready to deliver it when the funding cycle comes through. Again, represents really, truly the leadership of the council and the community working on it since 2014. But also, again, the work with regional partners, including sitting on and contributing to parts of the regional conversation, both the regional transportation plan and the looking at the scoring criteria for how PSRC evaluates and awards for which criteria to give project awards to, including equity population, safety needs, multimodal options, completing the streets, where redevelopment is happening, serving activity centers. The Meet Me on Meeker truly hits all of the marks on that program. PSRC also awarding funds this year to Kent for East Valley Highway, a preservation project between South 212th and South 196th Street. The 76th Avenue South North segment, that's the intersection with 212th, which is already under construction. That was partly an award of additional funds because the city of Kent was ready to accept those funds when perhaps some of our regional partners came up a little bit short with perhaps their permitting or their readiness. The city of Kent was ready to go. So that was truly an opportunity that we were able to latch onto when it arose. But also having those conversations and being part of the regional dialogue allowed us to deliver forward with that. In a similar situation with 224th Corridor, where in addition to the legislature, we had just a little bit more funds provided by being ready and able to accept those funds. Washington Department of Transportation, WashDOT, we also were very successful this year with a number of grants. These are spot location improvements. Really, the story with these projects is that a number of them, if not most of them, are safety-based. And they also have a needs basis, which is really, our success has to do with the city of Kent doing our homework. And a presentation y'all would have heard in, I believe, March by our traffic engineer on the local road safety program. And then submitting that to WashDOT really allowed us to compete on a more quantitative and stronger basis for safety-based projects, and then work with our partners at WashDOT to see them permitted and come to fruition. So you can see the concepts on the lower left-hand corner that then become, the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, like the one on Kangley Road up in the top upper left-hand corner. There are just a number of projects, including school flashing beacons at 7 different elementary schools that we're able to move forward with. It's worth noting that even though we just submitted that local road safety plan work in March, there were 14 projects listed and prioritized in that effort, and of those, approximately half have already been funded. Okay. So they're not big projects, but they're really important projects, and we're being really successful with them.
Hey, David, Councilmember Thomas, I have a quick question.
Just real quick, and I'm sorry I'm ignorant on this one, but what is the 4th Avenue Safety Road Diet?
So one of the concepts that we're still working through, and perhaps it requires a little bit of extra analysis, is the concept to add a little bit more space for pedestrian crossings by narrowing up the crossings, perhaps using a lane south of, I'm going to get the details wrong, Gal, if it's all right, can we come back with a little bit more?
You can phone a friend, too.
I think what you're saying is you're narrowing it is using the word diet. Is that correct, Chad?
Yeah, we're looking at narrowing up 4th Avenue
Narrowing it up.
between Willis and northbound all the way through Smith. And then we're looking at options, what David was getting to, we're looking at options at narrowing particularly one southbound lane between Smith and James, but we haven't got there yet. Mm-hmm. We're looking at needs with regard to both Kent Station right there and Showware, making sure that we don't have issues getting people out of Showware when we have some of the big shows. But day in and day out, if you do much walking out on 4th, narrowing up the road itself and trying to provide a little bit of buffer for people walking up and down the road would be a nice addition. It's pretty, you're pretty close to traffic as you're making your way through there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
Excellent question. Thank you. Any additional questions about the WashDOT projects?
I think we're good.
And then last but not least, on 2022, the Transportation Investment Board, Russell Road non-motorized improvements also really truly represents another example of partnerships. So this will be a third project in the vicinity, the immediate vicinity of Russell Road and 240th, which combined with other TIB grants will wrap the pedestrian accommodations around Hogan Park and improvements on 240th, completing a transportation connection to where people are working and recreating. So the next steps for 2022 grants are that we accept the grants. We'll be coming back to speak with you all in the Public Works Committee next month to accept the PSRC grants. We'll update the TIP and implement the projects. We'll also be continuing to follow the legislature this session for timing on the projects that have not been assigned timing. And we'll continue to craft and apply for grants as they come up, including 2023. So with that, that's the first half of the presentation. Any additional questions about 2022 grants and successes?
Nope. I think we're good to go.
Excellent. Thank you. So the second half of the presentation tonight, we're going to switch gears and talk about the 2024-2029 Transportation Improvement Program. We'll review the TIP update, what the schedule looks like. We'll take a look at how we are performing from a system-wide perspective, and we'll walk through 2023 grants. Perhaps as a refresher, or for those following along, the Transportation Improvement Program is a rolling 6-year work plan of projects in development and underway, as well as under construction. We update the program every year in the spring as required by state law, so that intergovernmental actions are in sync, and we also have a clearer picture of what's in the works. It also serves essentially as the menu for which we focus to apply grants for, so it's a pretty important process for us as well. A review of what the schedule looks like. It's about 5 months, so here we are in January, where we are reviewing our plans, adopted programs, we're talking with folks, we're getting project nominations, and we're asking, how are we doing? Then in February, we'll be drafting the list based on the nominations we have. We'll be updating materials like the outreach material. Then in March, we'll be taking out to the public. We'll be asking folks for their input and their feedback. Then in April, we will revise the recommendation based on the input that we've received, and we'll be taking it to Public Works Committee for further refinement, and then return to Council for a recommendation and formal adoption in May. So how are we doing? We're constantly looking at how we're doing, how it affects our decisions, prioritizations, priorities, and pausing. This is the time that we take to pause to take a look at how we are doing system-wide. So as a refresher, these were measures that were developed during the Transportation Master Plan. You'll see mode share was referenced on a number of lines. It's kind of small print. I do apologize for that. This is precisely the image and the graphic that will be used in the Transportation Improvement Program document. Mode share is used frequently with both the transportation field and features prominently in this list. But to try to make things a little bit easier, perhaps, and get the gist of things, we've rolled a number of the mode share measures all together into the top row so that we can see and track overall the big story, the big picture, if you will. And overall, that big picture is continued progress towards resilience. So that's one main takeaway that we have from taking a look at the measures this year. And then performance measures, and specifically mode share, is also important for the regionally competitive grants and the grant processes that we're doing so well at. So overall, we want to take one of the takeaways is, again, that we're making continued progress. But then also, this is very similar to the results that Council would have seen previously. And part of that is because these are system-wide performance metrics. We're talking about big systems, tens of thousands of people coming and going from the city of Kent, and those big numbers take time to move, just like our projects do, just like development does. So overall, tracking the progress is important, and overall, we are making progress. A lot has also happened in the last 3 years, and so some of us are doing things a little bit differently, but you don't necessarily see that spiking in the data because it does happen over time. We collect the data a little bit later, or we're able to review that data a little bit later. But overall, I just wanted to leave y'all with that image and that picture.
Wouldn't it be true, look at some of the scores, I mean, you talk about trips taken by transit decrease. A lot of how they impact with COVID, right? And then you talk about the next was around the working from home, so they kind of skewed the data back and forth based on COVID 2019, 2020?
Yes, sir, correct. The transit ridership continues to be down a little bit, and what we hear from our partners at King County Metro and what we're hearing at the Regional Transit Committee is that particularly commute peak direction is still down. But then work from home might be a little bit up. Some of the other modes are a little bit up. So on balance, things don't actually swing that much, at least as represented in this data collected by the Census and the American Community Survey, as some of those immediate month-to-month swings or quarter-to-quarter swings that King County Metro is experiencing.
Okay, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, so I was going to ask about footnoting because it's clear that a lot has happened in in the last 3 years. And Council President, to your point, one of the things I think that's interesting, though, is we see like the percentage of transit trips. If you were to look at that more granularly, like on the east side, I think you would see a significantly higher amount of a decrease, a higher decrease, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
When you look at the data for King County Metro Sound Transit across the system, and also our vehicle trips on the highways, everything was significantly lower in the South County than it was where transit almost stopped, or ridership almost stopped, say on the east side during COVID, because our residents are continuing to need to travel and commute. So overall, I think it's a pretty small number compared to what we may have seen in other places.
That makes sense. That last one, David, you got an X there. You want to talk about that a little bit, your last score?
Yes. The last performance measure has to do with the annual transportation impact fee collection annually. And this, so the current average that we collect is less than 3.2 million. And so it may be that that's a pretty steady number, that we are fairly, perhaps consistently collecting below 3.2 million. So it may be time to reevaluate that. Or maybe that's something we can reevaluate through the comprehensive plan update or whatnot. It's just one of those many funding sources that we just want to be able to report out on that rolls into the total funding picture for projects.
And did we set that target ourselves, or was that target set upon us?
That was set based on an average.
Okay.
So it's going to move depending on how much development comes through the door. So whatever Kurt's group sees, if we see a big spike in the development related to trips, then the traffic impact fee will go up. If we end up with a little less development or something that's not quite as intensive with regard to trips, for instance, warehousing, which doesn't have as many trips as, say, an office park, then we wouldn't collect as much TIF, but of course we wouldn't have as much traffic either. So it's one of those, it's more of a marker of kind of what's happening in the market versus did we miss a goal? It's not necessarily a goal as much as it's just, it is what's happening.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chad.
Okay, good.
So now let's do it again. 2023 grants. So I'll take the next couple of minutes to speak to the applications or the projects that we hope to nominate for applying for this year, so that we can try to continue to light up the projects. I'll go through each of the funding sources on the left in sequence. Now these again are high-level grants expected on the left, and we will be plugging the. You can also see the scan me symbol up on the right. These are all projects that we'll be including in the Transportation Improvement Program viewer. So this is a static image from our viewer that we have. And the first project, or the first project call, is from PSRC. And so there are two potential nominated projects for this, but you'll see 4 dots. So the first is pretty much a straightforward one. We have one remaining section of Meet Me on Meeker that we've been applying for and that we will continue to apply for that is not included in the state legislatures within that bounds. And that's the intersection of 64th Avenue multimodal improvements along the frontage of Kent Elementary School as well. So we will be, we propose to continue to apply for that one. The second one is really a bit unusual, perhaps, in that we believe that there's going to be a pilot program through PSRC funding call, but we don't know what the criteria are yet. So we've nominated, or we're looking at 3 different potential projects from the TIP that are already in the TIP. And those include 83rd Avenue, closing the sidewalk gap from 228th to 224th. That also ranked very highly in the Transportation Master Plan outreach. A rectangular rapid flashing beacon on Military Road. There are 3 of those in the TMP, so we would propose to move one of those forward. We think that the funding would be able to fund approximately one of those if we're storing the tea leaves just right. The third is a sidewalk project on 132nd Avenue Southeast. That's a sidewalk project from southeast to 276th Street to 278th Place. That one's nearing completion for construction, and so we're looking to construct. And then, of course, we would bring back the nomination for whichever one once we do have the criteria for recommendation and referral to the Public Works Committee. The second one is also a bit unusual for 2023. The state legislature directed WashDOT last year to begin a pilot program called Connecting Communities Pilot Program. In effect, WashDOT then turned around on a short timeline because they needed to be able to report back out progress in this year. They took projects from their multiple grants programs that we had already applied for statewide, multiple jurisdictions, and then they culled it through their criteria, and one of our projects hit all of the marks there as well. So then they reached out to us and essentially nominated one of the projects that we had submitted for another program. So we're quite proud of the fact that we are one of five municipalities statewide that have been nominated for that. So again, it's not inked yet. It still has to go through the legislature, but that's a project out of our Highway Safety Improvement Program. Again, the local road safety plan that was presented in March, I believe, to a workshop of council, and that's the Willis Street rectangular rapid flashing beacon at 2nd Avenue Southeast, and a road diet to Central Avenue, safety road diet to Central Avenue. So this would improve the crossing of Willis Street at 2nd Avenue. Another opportunity in 2022, which we haven't been able to report back out on because we don't have the inking yet, but we think that we might be reasonably expected. We applied to 2 U.S. DOT, Department of Transportation grants directly, which is a first for Kent. We're still waiting to hear back from them, but we are proposing to do so again in 2023. The first is a Safe Streets for All program, and the second is the Reconnecting Communities pilot program. So we presented these to Public Works Committee, but very briefly, and we hope to present again, but very briefly, the Safe Streets for All program is focused on root causes for fatal and severe crashes. It really includes an emphasis on public outreach and education for safety. And similar to our local road safety plan development, it's focused on issues that are specific to Kent and solutions that are specific to those issues. So we are one of 5 of the communities in the Puget Sound region that all submitted, and then USDOT said, how would you like to combine your applications? And we said, yes, we will go along with that. That sounds like a great opportunity. And so we're hoping to be reasonably expected for that program. And if and when we will be bringing that back to council, hopefully in the next couple of months. The second is a program that's really focused on improvements along or across highways, specifically with an emphasis on public involvement and equity communities. So that may also sound a little bit familiar to the WashDOT Reconnecting Communities program. This is a slightly different flavor for that. So we would be using this opportunity to go after the corridor that you see highlighted in the orange there. Really, it's the Central Avenue plan project from the Transportation Master Plan and the TIP, as well as the corridor along Canyon and Kent-Kangley Road. This is just basically to help us figure out what the solutions are, what the constraints are, what the opportunities are, and again, a robust public involvement process.
So with number 2, when you talk about the corridor, are we talking right in Central and 516 and up, what we're talking about, all the way up?
All the way up to the Y at 256, then Kent-Kangley Road. So there's...
The tip there where, that's
Yeah.
the Kangley Y up there.
Okay. Because we did a lot of work on that road there. I mean, it is really bad, so.
So we're looking for some assistance and guidance and to help us to look at some of those issues. And in fact, this next opportunity represents an ongoing partnership between King County Metro and the City of Kent. It's opportunities and issues as identified through the Safe Access to Transit study completed in 2020. You'll notice that a lot of these have overlapping items or overlapping locations with State Route 516, and so, you know, we whenever we can, we try to find overlapping efficiencies to take a look at what issues are, both from a a workload standpoint, but also from a funding standpoint, community involvement, to the extent that we can combine a number of these things, that it helps. So you'll notice a couple of these items are also grayed out. That's because even those list was developed in 2020 and was largely surrounding the future I-Line project. Some of those solutions have already been found through the development of the I-Line program. And again, you may start to hear some of the drumbeat, the local road safety plan, which has funded another one of the improvements along there. So these are all locations that we'll be looking at ultimately through this particular funding conversation. Probably only one or two or three would be funded, and that we're just still working on that and hope to be able to speak more to it. So deep breath, 2024 and beyond. As we are working to update the Transportation Improvement Program, the emphasis on the goal on the goal criteria of the Transportation Master Plan and following the TMP's implementation plan, we know that all of these issues, and there will continue to be an emphasis on the items on the left. Coordination with departments, and as we're developing the TIP update, we continue the processes that we've established in the past, coordinating with departments on nomination of additional projects, additional outreach to agencies, other agencies like the Kent School District and Puget Sound Regional Fire, the Police Department we've already reached out to and looking for their input for nominations of projects. But just to highlight three specific ones that we'll be looking at over the course of the next month as we are looking for projects to nominate. The first, again, projects that are in the local road safety plan, because scoring criteria tends to favor those. Projects that have above average or consider equity populations in some of the Transportation Master Plan mapping represents those. And in projects that are in the TMP that forward most or more of the 5 goals that are in the plan. And really got to beat the last bullet on that, the drum on the last bullet, partnerships and the ongoing conversations with all of the work that we're doing, and to keep those conversations going really is helping, will help continue to guide our success. So with that, as our leadership and our core stakeholder for the City of Kent, and in the council represents a continuity of those conversations and of course our authority. What else? What else should we be considering as we are compiling our projects to nominate for the grants and for the TIP update? We know that safety is going to be a big issue, continue to be, and looking for funding opportunities for that. Is there a gap that we should be focusing on, or a program or a project now and later in the process? Are there any projects or programs that y'all would like to see us adding to the TIP? With that, I'm happy to accept we are happy to take any questions that y'all have, or we will look forward to seeing y'all next time with the draft TIP.
First, I want to say, great presentation. How long you been with the city?
About 9 months.
Wow, good job. I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you very much. And we need to keep in mind, there's a lot of pre-work that goes on before some of these projects happen. I think we are very fortunate. I want to give staff kudos by really being visionary, being able to see what's coming in, and when the opportunity come, we are ready to go. And I just want to say kudos to our staff. I mean, excellent job. And then my last comment, really around Kurt and Chad. I mean, I used to associate this project with you, Kurt, but Chad, I'm going to pass the baton to you. So meet me on Meeker, that is, Kurt. So he kind of lost your kudos. Good job, but Chad going to close it up for us. So good job. Hey, great presentation. With that said, any comments from the council member? Thoughts? Please, Councilmember Kaur.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to say thank you, David. Great job. You're doing a great job. And we all appreciate all the grant funding that comes to our city to fund these projects and making a difference. And we appreciate all the work that goes into that. So thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Okay. Good job. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I'm glad to have you part of the city as well, too. So thank you. Okay. Mr. Brown going to bring us home for a quiet zone updated.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Council President, members of the City Council, Madam Mayor. Rob Brown, I am the Transportation Engineering Manager for Public Works. It's been about 9 months since our last update for the quiet zone, so we thought we'd give you an update on what's going on. A few of the topics we'll talk about tonight. Overview of the quiet zone process, legislative appropriation, an update on BNSF, and an update on Union Pacific. So just a quick update on the quiet zone. You've heard this all before, so I'll go through this quickly. The map on the right shows the 13 crossings that will be part of the 2 quiet zones. On the left side of the map there, you can see north-south are the Union Pacific quiet zones from top to bottom, or north to south. 212th, James, Smith, Meeker, and Willis Street. On BNSF, those are on the right side. There's 8 crossings, top to bottom again. You've got 212th, James, Smith, Meeker, Gow, Titus, Willis Street, and South 259th Street. Just a quick overview of the process. Quiet zones are established through federal law. The federal law does establish the minimum requirements for a quiet zone, but it does also require us to conduct what's called a diagnostic, and that is an expert panel consisting of people from the city, the railroads, the Utilities and Transportation Commission, and the Federal Railroad Administration that go and visit each crossing and determine what additional crossing improvements need to be made in addition to those federal requirements. Following that diagnostic, the city then gets the approvals from the Federal Railroad Administration and from the Utilities and Transportation Commission. That's then followed by construction projects and the establishment of quiet zones. Overview, legislative appropriation. We were the recipient of a $3 million appropriation from the state legislature last legislative session. This work was, and I want to read you this out of the law because it is really great. Operational improvements and other actions to improve safety and reduce train noise with the goal of increasing quality of life and facilitating transit-oriented living in downtown Kent. So that's awesome. That came with $3 million. That is administered through the Department of Commerce. Once they take their administrative fee out, that leaves the city $2.95 million available to make railroad crossing safety improvements to work towards the quiet zone. This is part of the 2022-2023 state operational budget, so the funds do expire on June 30th, 2023. So we've got a little less than 6 months left to spend those. Those funds can be used for design projects as well as construction towards, again, those crossing safety and quiet zone. There are some requirements that came along with that. One of those is a cultural resource assessment, which is something that we typically don't do, but that has been completed. Right now, we are still working on formalizing the agreement with the Department of Commerce so we can start receiving that money, but they've assured us that all the work we've done up to this point will be eligible for funding once that agreement is in place. So we'll move on to BNSF update. Before I start with the BNSF update, I do want to acknowledge several people. Our design team, our survey team, and our construction team have put a lot of effort into this. This has been a whirlwind. There has been so much work that's occurred in the last 3 or 4 months to get to the point where we are now with these projects that I just need to take a moment to recognize them for all the work they've done. So BNSF. BNSF has a local office, a local presence. They've got their engineering and managing staff. We have a new project manager that's been assigned to the projects in Kent. He's newer to the area, and he's been great to work with. His name's Alex Funderburg. He's with BNSF, and he's excited about these crossing improvements, almost as excited as we are because, again, we're working towards a quiet zone and crossing safety. BNSF sees this as free money to make crossing safety improvements. So they're really excited, and we've been working very closely with Alex, and so I want to thank him as well. 2 contracts that have already been put together. There's a fencing contract. Part of the requirements to establish a quiet zone is to install some anti-trespassing fence. And so we've, our design team and survey design and construction worked together to put together a contract to install some of this fencing. There's about in BNSF, about 1,800 feet of fencing that'll be installed north of James Street. And then south of Willis Street, there'll be about 1,300 feet installed on the Railroad Avenue side, that's the east side, and 1,400 feet on the First Avenue side. So that contract has gone to ad, and we've received bids, so good news there. And we've also got a crossing modification contract that went on ad today. This will modify 7 of the 8 BNSF crossings, which I'll get to in just a second. So this will get us a long way. It's probably 75% or so of the improvements that we will need to establish the quiet zone on BNSF. The one remaining is the Willis Street. This is also State Route 516, as you're aware, and that requires approval of the Washington State Department of Transportation. So we're in the process of hiring a design consultant to help us prepare all of those documents and plans that are required for that state approval. That'll be a little process in itself. And then the part I know you're all waiting for is the schedule. So I've simplified the schedule. It used to show months, and I decided that it probably wasn't that great to show, 48 or 60 months worth of little tiny cells. So we're going to do quarters this time. So here's the BNSF schedule. We've got the FRA reviews that are still in process. Under that's the legislative appropriation. We're showing we've got 2 quarters left of that. And under that, the fencing contract that I mentioned and the crossing modification contract that I mentioned. And then one of the things that we need to do, one of the requirements to establish the quiet zone, is to upgrade those flashing lights at each of the railroad crossings from the incandescent bulbs to LEDs. And so we're working with BNSF to try and enter into a contract to have them do that work before that legislative appropriation funding expires. Following that, we are also working on traffic signal interconnect, so that ties the traffic signals and the railroad signals together. So when the trains are approaching, we can do things with the traffic signals to clear traffic that's near the railroad tracks. You'll also see below that is the Willow Street design and washed out approval. That's going to take quite a bit of time. There's quite a bit of back and forth. The state is very particular about their forms and their approvals. Following that, we anticipate a crossing contract to make those modifications on Willow Street, and then that will be followed by that 60-day notice of establishment for the quiet zone. And we are hoping to have the quiet zone established in the second quarter of 2025. So again, BNSF, I looked up the numbers this afternoon. Prior to COVID, BNSF had about 64 trains per day, and in the last couple of years, that's gone down to 46, but that's all the Sounders, all the Amtrak trains, and a bunch of freight trains. So big win for the city here when we can get the BN quiet zone established with all those trains combined. Any questions on that before I go to UP? All right.
Okay.
UP update. So Union Pacific's a little different. They have a little different operating procedure. They don't have a local presence. The managing team that we're working with is out of Nevada, actually. And they have a little different operating procedure and how they work on the plans. They're requiring us to submit basically our 30% design plans to them, and then we start the collaborative process back and forth to get to those designs. So we're a little farther behind on UP. UP, we also have more work that needs to be done by the railroad. BNSF, pretty much some of the signal work for that interconnect I mentioned, as well as replacing the signal beacons with LEDs. Union Pacific, there are the crossing surfaces. Those are the concrete panels with the rails in them. Several of those need to be replaced. That was identified in the diagnostic. So there's more work that UP has to do with us, or do for us. So I'm still working through the design again with them. Also Willis, as with BNSF, Willis is state highway. It needs the same state approvals, and we're also working with the consultant team I mentioned earlier to get those documents prepared. Other big thing with UP is the gates at Willow Street need to be relocated. That was something that was identified. The state wants us to relocate those, and the railroad wants us to relocate those because the gates are longer than the current UP standard.
Hey, well, Councilman Thomas has a quick question, please.
Just real quick, sorry about that, but you have Willis Crossing there, but isn't that Smith Street Crossing?
That's actually, that's James Street. Unfortunately, the bottom
show where-
is cut off. Yeah. I didn't have a good picture of Willis. I probably should have put one in there.
Okay, thanks. Sorry.
And then Union Pacific schedule, again, been still working through the FRA approvals, the legislative appropriation, crossing design. Line below that showing the crossing designs continuing along with, in parallel with the Willis Street design approval. Hoping to get those by middle of next year, and then we'll do the contract with the railroad to do those crossing modifications, and then relocating the gates at Willow Street. And those, Union Pacific's telling us now that it takes about 4 months to get an agreement with them, and then at least 18 months for construction. So there'll be some railroad work. And also below that, we're showing the city's crossing modification contract. Is also planned to start in the third quarter of 2024. So given this timeline, notice of intent and the quiet zone hopefully established in the fourth quarter of 2025. So this is a little quicker than we showed in the last schedule last year that we're showing the middle of 2026. So, but again, we've got a lot of momentum with this commerce funding and the work with the railroad, so we're really excited about that. And with that, That's the end of my presentation. I will be happy to answer questions.
Great job. This is going to be a job security project for you, right? So once we finish, you'll probably be eligible for retirement by then, right? So as always, hey,
It's only 2 years from now.
we'll see. We'll see.
Get a-
We're not, I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about the people we have to deal with, right? So hopefully, we'll see. Great presentation. Thank you so much. Any questions, comments, council members?
Chad's lurking back there.
Chad, you have any comments you want to make to us, Chad?
It can feel like a job security project from time to time, but we are excited. The money that the legislature appropriated to us was a big shot in the arm. Given some good tailwinds this spring, I think that the community is going to see more action out on those crossings than they've seen in years since we put the curb in. Years ago, was that, Rob, 4 or 5 years ago?
We replaced it. Sound Transit put it in.
Yeah, so we're excited to have it in. We'll have the coordination with the Department of Transportation on 516 on Willis Street. That's probably going to be the biggest hiccup in getting the work through Union Pacific, but we are on it. So I kind of feel like, I was looming behind Rob there for a bit. I kind of feel like former council member Dennis Higgins is looming behind all of us. And,
He still is,
he's
trust
probably
me.
watching, and so if nothing else, I promise the community, but I think that was one of the last things he said on the way out. I want to make sure we get this done, so we don't want to make it a job security project, we want to get it done.
Great progress, great progress. So thank you so much. And I don't see, Madam Mayor, please.
I just want to say thank you to our entire transportation team. All three presentations, the Sound Transit presentation, the grant funding, and the Quiet Zone represent massive projects for this community. I mean, like, I don't know how to put words to how big and how important these projects are. And all three of the presenters were very understated and calm, and the amount of work that goes in to get these projects here, and the fact that Kent has been so successful when it comes to working with our partners on the Sound Transit stuff. We have other neighboring cities that have looked back and said, wow, you guys thought about this before going into the development of those stations and the station areas. And I mean, Council President, you meant, just the naming of the station, the location, what we're getting, the traffic mitigation, all those things came from the planning, starting in Kurt's shop and coming through into Public Works, the grants, sitting on the Transportation Policy Board and watching that process, working through it. Kent has been there every time with our projects that have ranked really high on the contingency list. And when somebody else says, yeah, I'm not going to quite make it, we can raise our hand and say, that money's coming. Working with the legislature, Representative Sullivan last year with the appropriation on the Quiet Zone, the work that Rob's team has done in just sticking, with getting the railroad to even pick up the phone. We're just making tremendous progress, and I could not be more proud of our transportation group and Public Works for the work that you guys are doing. Getting to see what's happening in other cities, I don't see anything that even comes close to comparing. So thank you all for all of that work.
Well said, Madam Mayor. Kudos to the staff. Great job here. We're going to take a quick break here, but I want to, once again, we do recognize a special guest in the audience, and that's Priscilla, who is a sophomore at Kent Meridian. I said Kent Ridge earlier, so I want to make a correction. Yes, KM. So that Councilmember Thomas and Madam Mayor both attended KM, and she was with us on the ops meeting and workshop, and she wanted to stay through the council. I said, you want to stay this long? She said, yes, if you have me. So we always happy to have you. And then she's interested in politics. So hopefully we all set a good example tonight, and maybe she can replace us all one day. So with that said, we'll take a break to 7, and we will talking to you soon. Thank you so much. We'll adjourn.